So like, just being like, sorry.
You want to write the book that you
Yeah, like again, yeah. Just doing what I did.
I was just about to bring it up.
I know.
It's been fairly I'm sorry, was that you? You got both of them. Hi, nice to see you, but I didn't want to steal your help.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I think you can hear me. Hi, welcome. It's so great to be here. Thank you, Emma, and the whole team at Books A Million for hosting the launch event, the second launch event for Chris Castellani for Last Scene. And I'm Chris's current editor, Patrick Nolan. We're really thrilled to see Chris's emeritus editor, Paul Slovak, here in the audience as well. He edited Chris's first publication at Viking, Last Scene. So Paul, it's so great to see you. It's so nice to be here. And this is, as I said, the kickoff event. There's 24 more to come. An ambitious big tour for Last Scene. And we have two of really the great living American novelists on stage tonight. And the last time I saw Chris and Stacey Durasmo on stage, it was an incredible conversation focused on Stacey's brilliant nonfiction book, The Long Run, A Creative Inquiry. Tonight, Stacey will lead Chris in conversation about his new novel, Last Scene, his fifth novel, and it's definitely his most ambitious, and in my opinion, Paul, your novel was fabulous, but I think this novel, all Chris's work, is his best yet. Chris, I feel it was like a couple years ago that we were in a parlor in Provincetown at a spontaneous reading for everyone in town who writes. And I was surprised when Chris took the podium and announced he was reading from a forthcoming novel. And what he read gave me chills and made me super just anxious. I wanted to see that book. And I waited a bit, and he delivered this incredible manuscript that, again, is just beyond any expectation. The reviews that are coming in are celebrating the genius of the writing, but I also would stress the deep and powerful storytelling that's here. You're going to be haunted by this book when you read it. My editorial colleague, Emma Dollar, was reading it on the job, which doesn't get to happen all that often. She was rushing to finish the last 20 pages, sobbing at her desk as we were getting ready to go to editorial meeting and talk about the book. And I think many of you will find yourself in probably less public moments, but equally moved and perhaps also in tears. So I think that's about all I needed to say. I mentioned these are two great American novelists, but they're incredible, passionate teachers. They are deep, inquisitive thinkers. And I think most importantly, they're just two really amazing, generous human beings. And this is going to be a great night. So over to you, Stacey and Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And it's a complete delight to be here. I'm so happy to be here to celebrate this amazing book, which I love. Chris, could you read from the Matthew section?
Oh, we're gonna go right into it.
We're gonna go
Okay, all right.
We're gonna go right into it. We're gonna yeah.
First of all, thank you so much, Patrick, and thank you, Paul, and thank you, Emma, who all of you incredible editors for the last book and for this book. And thank you all, every single person here, for coming. I know there are so many things you can do with your time in this world, and I'm so just really honored and moved that so many of you are here. I know many of you, and every single person here who I know, I adore, but I'm also thrilled that there are all these people here I don't know, which is kind of crazy. Who are you? Why are you here? Don't you have better things to do? Thank you, seriously, and thank you so much to Books Are Magic for hosting us. Okay, so this is this part. Yeah. Okay. So this is the very beginning of a section, and it's from the perspective of Matthew. That's all you know about who it is before you get there. I am one of those boys they keep finding in the river. For now, I am floating at the surface of the Huron, somewhere in Ann Arbor, my arms hugging my chest like I'm trying to keep warm, watching the slow progress of clouds through a thick window of ice. I am waiting to be pulled onto shore, delivered into the arms of my mother, to see my name, Matthew Cardulo, in the papers one last time, not with the words still missing above my senior portrait, but with the dates of my life, December 18th, 1999 to February 23rd, 2020. I am waiting to be solved. I am waiting, like you, like everyone, for the end of the story. In the meantime, sunrise, moonrise, rain, helicopters, flashes of birds, the smudged lacrimulae of stars, all of it beautiful and horrible and wild and fucking tedious, same as it was in the before. Day and night as I float and let the current carry me to a place where I will be found, I am listening to the other boys, and when their voices get too loud and annoying, I practice my declensions, lacrimularum, lacrimulis. I was loud too when I got here, kicking my feet as I plunged through the frigid water, screaming and thrashing in the mud at the bottom of the river, trying to wriggle off my heavy coat, calling out to the boys I could hear but not yet see in the blackness. Where was I? What was happening to me? Weeks ago, months, a year? Time does still matter here, even if we have no way to measure it, even though it keeps leaping out of our hands and disappearing in the muck, like that pet frog I had for a single day when I was 10. Fritzy, I called him. I chased that little fucker up and down Quail Creek, one of those endless summer afternoons you get a million of when you're a kid, and never again. And I swear Fritzy made a game out of it, winking back at me before hopping away, turning up behind me somehow, letting me hold him, cupped in my chubby hands, and then flying off to a rock in the middle of the creek. Anyway, I'm figuring out that's the slippery way time works for us here. Now, like it's teasing us and tricking us, and won't care one bit when it's finally done with us. That's up there.
So the book is really centered around these four young
Louder, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is the mic not? Is it loud? Is it loud enough now? No.
I can turn it up.
Can you turn it up? I can yell. I can yell.
How are we doing?
Okay, is this better? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So the book is centered around these four young men who, all of whom have gone missing and who are dead. And I was joking to Patrick, it's like spoiler alert, everybody's dead.
Right.
They all died. And they there are mysteries around their disappearances. So it's these four kind of voices from beyond the grave, and they're connected in this sort of astonishing, magical way. And the book goes through their stories of people that they loved. It's really incredible. This book is such a departure for you. You're really making this extraordinary use of true crime, which is something that you've never, as far as I know, that's a place you've never gone before. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about how you came to write this.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think technically it is a departure in the sense that, like, it's different. It's a different container for the same kinds of things that I feel like I've been exploring for in my other books as well, namely relationships between people who love each other and hurt each other and betray each other, and parents and children, and all these things. So at the core, it's really just another Chris Castellani book, right? But where there's all this love and longing and all of this. But the container is different in the sense that that I had to deal with this true crime stuff, which, like, as you said, I did not know anything about, and I sort of fell into it accidentally because I fell in love with these characters. And it started with a young man named Michael Kelleher, who disappeared in Boston in 2017, 2018 or so. I saw his reports of him, he had gone missing after attending a Celtics game, I believe, and just his friends, he had no indication of, disappearing, or he seemed fine. And he was gone for days, maybe weeks, and it kept coming up in the papers, where is he, where is he? And then they found him in the river, in the Charles River, and, they found his body. And I read the comments, which, of course you should never do, but, and they said, oh, it looks like a smiley face thing. And I'm like, what? Like, what's smiley face? And so I learned from going down the rabbit hole that there is this phenomenon of young men disappearing sort of out of nowhere, and being found days, weeks, months later, under, dead in these icy rivers and lakes in the Northeast and Midwest during the wintertime. And that there's two detectives who started this theory that there's this roving gang of serial killers who are out there targeting these young men for the past 25 years. This theory has been debunked over and over and over again, and yet it persists, right? And because most of these cases do get solved, but there are enough cases that remain unsolved, and there are these strange commonalities that they have. And so true crime looks for an answer always, and there usually is an answer. And I wanted to write as much about looking for that answer and why we need that answer as I wanted to write about. Like, I was interested in solving these murders. That's not what this book is about. There may not even be murders in here. I'm not gonna give that much away, but there may or may not be murders. But I was more interested in. Sorry, the last thing I'll say about true crime, I promise, is that I feel like when I read, I don't read much true crime, but I feel like when I see documentaries or true crime shows, that the focus is so much on the psyche of the murderer, right? How could someone do this? What was their childhood like? What was their home life like? And then let's say they're targeting a type of person. And then all those victims become this, they kind of merge into one, and they lose their identities. And so this book is really more about looking at who are the victims and what their lives were like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really extraordinary act of mourning, right? Something that I really admire in the book that is so hard to do is that it exists not only between genres, but also between tones, right? So we begin the book with James, who's this guy who is the older lover of Caleb, who's one of the boys who's gone missing. And James has gotten really obsessed with, like, what happened, what's happened to these other boys, what is this, and is it the smiley face, right? And he's sort of a detective almost of this whole thing. But at the beginning you strike this really fascinating note that it's like, is this creepy? Is this obsessed the way a lover would be obsessed with a beloved? Is this pathetic? Is this heroic? Right? Why did these betweennesses seem like the right medium for the novel?
Yeah, I mean, because we're all in between everything, right? The answer to your question is yes. It was creepy. It was a lover thing. It was all of those things, right? Yeah. And like, I was really trying to hold all those tonal shifts. I was really trying to hold in the characters the complexity that we all have as humans, right? And that's also why the book is in this almost like mosaic kind of structure, where it's lots of little sections. They're all, well, some of them aren't so little, but they're all told out of linear time, and it's a very voicey book, right? Like, so, and again, in all of our voices, even in this conversation, our tones keep changing from, mournful to I'll crack some dumb joke that hopefully people will laugh at, whatever. And we're constructing ourselves here for this audience. And these boys are constructing themselves still for each other in the afterlife, even though all is lost, and they still feel like they need to puff themselves up. So I really wanted to capture all of that kind of complexity, and so those tonal shifts are really necessary, I think, to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to say that the book is also, it's funny, it's sexy, it's a lot of things, right?
And my friend read it, who said, like, why is this book so hot? And I was like, oh, good. I was like, great, okay. So, thank you for saying that.
Can you read the section, the Caleb section, that's 141?
Thank you, sure, yes. So each of the boys has these long sections in the middle that Stacy, who was one of my crucial readers for this book, called their soul arias, which is, I think, like the most beautiful way you could possibly describe these kinds of cries of the heart that these young men have. So this is his, and at the top it has their name and the date that they died. So this is Caleb Alexander Aldrich, December 7th, 1986 to December 24th, 2007. I am one of those boys they keep finding in the river. If you're around my age, you already know my name, Caleb Aldrich, as in don't end up like Caleb Aldrich. You're in the woods or at a bar or about to send pics to some guy online, and my name pops into your head like an alarm going off. Caleb Aldrich with the blue lobster eyes and blonde curls and toothpaste commercial smile. Caleb Aldrich, who was too beautiful to live. You are not as beautiful as I was, or as smart, but you're not as dumb either. Lucky you. So you block the guy's profile, refuse his free drink. You run back to the parking lot as fast as you can, wondering what he must have looked like, the beautiful Caleb Aldrich, as he rotted for 13 years in Dog River. How much of him was even left? When I was a kid, a cop came to my school every year to show us the same movie about men who drove around in white vans. Stranger Danger, it was called. The movie, the cop's presentation, the life lesson itself. In his dark uniform, weighed down by a gun and a club and a heavy hat, the cop warned us never to get into any vehicle driven by a person who was not a parent, a teacher, or a police officer wearing a badge like the one he passed around for us to inspect. For months afterward, walking home alone from the bus stop, I saw white vans everywhere, turning into gas stations, parked at the 7-Eleven, slowing to get a better look at me. I peered into the windows at the faces of the men behind the wheel, their beards and baseball caps and mirrored sunglasses, knowing somehow that one day one of them would stop and open his door and I'd climb willingly in. We'll keep going right in there. Okay.
That's great. So not to go all Foucault on things, but
It's that time of the night.
but in 1981, Foucault said, "To imagine a sexual act that doesn't conform to law or nature is not what disturbs people, but that individuals are beginning to love one another, there's the problem." So this seems to me so resonant in the depiction of the James-Caleb relationship, because James, he's married to a woman, he's decades older than Caleb, they meet in a cruising spot, and yet what develops between them is real, right? It's not a porn movie, and it's not Death in Venice either, right? It's not like James like, you know. I think it might
James
be,
is hot too. Yeah. Yes.
James is hot in his way.
In his own way. Yeah,
He's
sorry.
beautiful to Caleb.
Yes, exactly.
Right. I mean, that's part of it. He's
Yes.
like so.
He's actually very average, which
He's
makes
very average.
Yes, yes.
He's very average.
Yeah.
But Caleb, right?
Right.
He's all that to Caleb.
Right.
In some ways, to me, it seems like it's almost the most radical moment in the book, right? The most radical element in the book. And I wondered if you imagined how readers might react to this pair. I don't know that I've ever seen a pair like this in literature that I can think of. Not like this.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to. We begin the book with James, as you mentioned, which, by the way, was your note to my early manuscript, which was totally the right note. It gave the book more of a spine, and it gave actually not more of a spine, a spine. Did not have a spine before, and so that helped with the readability, I think, of it so much. And yeah, I really wanted their relationship to be, even though it started in this, non-traditional way, like meeting in a cruise park, and even that he's decades older. Yeah, it was like a tradition. Like, I did not want that to mean that it wasn't a relationship, that was a real relationship, and that where they both were actually, in love with each other, getting what they needed for each other. And even, I mean, they both talk about how their relationship sort of makes no sense, and how they don't really know what draws them to each other, but it does. And I think at one point he said something like, it must have been love, but nobody believes in that anymore. And that he had this great love for Caleb and also for his wife. I really wanted to explore that and not to demonize him, and not to make it like all the guys in the chat that Caleb is chatting with are all, and he tells them about his relationship with James, and they're all like, oh yeah, this is all like, this is creepy, or he must be so creepy, or whatever. And I just wanted to kind of, I hate saying normalize it, but because it's such an overused term, but I wanted to kind of bring that into into the book as something that was real and complicated and resisted a kind of easy definition. And it's one of like 6 age gap relationships in the book, which like I did not do on purpose. It just sort of happened, and they're not all the same, type of relationship at all. But that just sort of happened, and which is how these things go, right?
Well, and it's not pathologized,
Right, exactly.
which is so rare.
Exactly,
Right? It's
right.
not. There's no villain in this story.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Another aspect of the book that I find so captivating and so fresh is its take on ordinary men. There's that famous Flannery O'Connor quote where she says, a writer should love their characters as much as God loves them, but not more.
Right.
And that's what this book does so well. And right now there's a lot of cultural talk that's basically about like, what the hell is wrong with men? Which is a very which is a pertinent question. But the novel has so much tenderness for these guys. They aren't saints, but you really do illuminate their souls. And I feel like the book is really an exploration of masculinity that we see very rarely.
Yeah.
We really don't see it like this. And I just wondered like why this aspect was important to you. Was it always part of your vision for the book?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I finished the book right before the 2016 election. So before all the discourse about, what's wrong with men, why are they turning right wing, like all this, and because these are the guys like who would be in that conversation. So it wasn't on my mind. That aspect of it wasn't on my mind when I was writing. What was on my mind was, why are men the way they are, right? Why are we like this, and how did we get this way, and what sorts of pressures are on us, but within that, the age-old question of like, why is it so hard for men to say like what they feel, right? To be honest with themselves and with their partners, right? Like where does this struggle to communicate come from? And I don't have any answers for that, right? Like, I mean, like I love I forget who said it, you probably know, like the novel doesn't answer a question, it asks a question, right? So that was the question I was asking, like, why are we like this? And why are they like this? And I just put these 4 really pretty ordinary guys, like I really wanted them to be like Joe Average for the most part, and just kind of try to figure out what made them tick. And they all, as I was saying before, they all have, they're all still like clinging to all the things that they were brought up with, right? Yeah. They're still afraid to really be themselves, even in death, right? And they're still like, I would, and I felt like they were lying to me the whole time I was writing to them, right? And I'm like, why aren't you telling me the truth? Like, what really happened, And they still were posturing, and they still were doing this. And so I think, like, and I think that actually does come from the love thing, is that like we were in like this kind of power, like the characters in me were in this kind of like, we were having all this erotic tension, and I hope that came through in a way in the book. So
Do you really think they're lying all the way through?
no, I mean
They're not. They're not.
there are moments where
Yeah.
they just break through and tell the truth, but then they quickly kind of retreat, or they try to undo it,
Yeah.
right? Or they start to like dump on somebody else, or talk about someone who's still alive who did them wrong or something like
Yeah.
that, right? And then they have this ability, kind of an inconsistent ability to communicate with the people on Earth, or one person who's still living, but they're really bad at it, right? And that was also, or they don't have quite the capabilities, and that in itself was kind of a metaphor for how men are just, we lacked some kind of gene that allows us to, plus we're socialized, we probably don't lack the gene, it's the socialization of it, of us, yeah.
Right.
So,
Right. That's so interesting. Like even when they're dead,
yeah,
they're like flexing.
yeah, totally, yeah,
They're
yeah.
flexing.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
rotting. They're rotting.
Absolutely, and they're comparing themselves to the other dead boys, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
oh,
true.
I'm better than, I wouldn't
Yeah.
wanted to hang out with him in life, let alone in death, kind of thing, so.
It never ends.
Right, it never ends.
Could you read from the Leo section,
What things?
174
Thank you.
to curls?
Oh, yeah. So this is Leopold Leo Ridgway, September 95 to January 2016. I am one of those boys they keep finding in the river. For 4 days, I lay on my back in the rum on a flat rock that jutted out from the eastern bank. The lower half of my body was submerged in the water like I was both sunning and cooling myself, except I still had all my clothes on, black jeans, black shirt, silver belt, silver chain, black socks, black puffer vest, and my arms were in an X over my chest. My boots and hat were long gone, my hair was in my eyes, obscuring my view of the sky over St. Paul that was not the actual St. Paul sky, but my idea of the sky. I didn't see the fuckwads who fixed me up like this and stole my wallet and keys and flew vogs and spray painted this pink smiley face on the rock. I didn't see the hiker or hear him call 911 and shout the words dead kid, that echoed into the woods. I only know about all of that from the stories that came my way later, told by Katie to the men at Jenks Lumber Supply, and her boss at the bookstore, and her high priestess of a therapist, Margaret Mead Ash, and, well, anybody who even hinted at it. Katie talks about me more than I ever talked about myself, more than anyone talked about me before I disappeared, and no doubt more than people will talk about me in all the years to come. I'm with Katie most of the time. Summoning Matt and Caleb and Steve takes so much concentration and effort, and even when one of us, usually Matt, manages to wrangle us together, we shout as loud as we can and talk so fast to catch each other up that we can't or won't follow the conversations the way we used to when Matt first got here. I don't recognize all the names and places they shout about, and they've lost track of me and Katie. They haven't even met Leo, and yet they don't ask me questions, and they don't slow down. I'm just as guilty, to be honest. It's like we've stopped caring about communication with each other at all. We just shout our own shit, even though, like I said, we can barely hear ourselves or each other over the shouting. But I miss those guys, which makes me angry and lonely all over again. So I follow Katie and Leo around. Who I find depends on the moment of the day and place I look in on them, a moment that never lasts long. Just when I'm sure Leo can sense my presence, my elbow on his shoulder, just when he catches that shiver, he's gone, and suddenly I'm in some other moment of some other day, in some other place with him. Matt describes time here like a frog jumping in and out of your hands, but to me, it feels more like more like dreams dissolving into other dreams. You know how you don't remember any of your dreams coming to an end? Like there's no credits rolling at the end of them. You're just already in the next one, and everything's out of order. That's how it is for me, because in one dream, Leo's still calling himself Katie, and she's half his size, and her hair is a mess of curls.
Yeah, great. Great. So you wrote this amazing craft book called The Art of Perspective, and you're doing a lot with point of view in this book,
Yeah.
right? And actually writing across difference. So Leo's sibling Katie, and this is a spoiler, but Chris just read it, so it's all right. Katie transitions into Leo midway through, so now there's a Leopold and a
So many
Leo.
Leos in this
There's a
book.
lot of Leos. And the novel often has this kind of choral feeling, and sometimes it dips into first person plural, right? So I just wondered what opened up for you in terms of perspective in writing this book.
Yeah, I mean, I figured if I wrote a book called The Art of Perspective, I should probably like put my money where my mouth was and do something that had a kind of unique perspective, right? And one of the things that I try to say in the book is that the main question that you ask about the story that you're writing is who's telling it. Like that's the most important question that you have to answer, and from what point in time and all of that. But equally important is the kind of the overall strategy that you have for how are you going to get your reader to follow the plot, care about the characters, etc. If you don't have this kind of overarching strategy for how this is going to be delivered to the reader. And so I mentioned before this sort of mosaic structure, and I always knew that it would, not always knew, but when I figured it out, I figured out the strategy of being this kind of chorus, this mosaic, whatever you want to call it, where the stories would be kind of informing and filling out each other's stories, so that you wouldn't get everything at the beginning, but then you would pick it up maybe from another character somewhere else, so that by the end it kind of all hopefully comes together, but along the way it's kind of like, wait, didn't this go with that person? So I wanted there to be that kind of I wanted basically the reader to have to meet these voices halfway, and I wanted not to have to work too much, but to kind of to just meet the writers, meet the voices halfway, and try to figure out what they were, how they were all fitting together, right? I think, does that answer the question? Okay, all right.
Will you read the
Oh, yeah.
Stephen section,
Oh, yeah.
page 241?
Okay. Oh, this is the end. Okay, this is the end of this section. Right? So these are not his last words in the book, but
It is his last night.
it's his right. It's his last night on Earth. Yeah. So, and he's the one who's having. I think it's useful to know he's having this kind of torrid affair with his much older boss, a married woman, Italian woman, and he becomes somewhat obsessed with her. I don't want to characterize their relationship, but he goes to spy on her and her husband on this night. So that Saturday night, I don't remember leaving the door, which is this community center there that he works, where he has a history. I don't remember leaving the door or paying the fare at Fields Corner or walking through the turnstile at Haymarket, but I do remember how fucking freezing it was walking in my too thin jacket and my feet in 2 layers of socks going instantly numb, stepping in slush on the way to the Bell in Hand, where the asshole bartender denied me another beer after just 3, maybe 4. And of course I remember standing in the window that had a perfect view of the Green Dragon, waiting and waiting for Monica and Arthur to show up in the line for Blue Sunshine. I remember them that's the name of the band. I remember them holding hands as they walked, huddling in the cold and the wind and the sleet just starting to come down, and by the time I figured out what the fuck I'd come to dare to do to them, they'd made it into the Green Dragon and bought drinks and appeared in the opposite window, laughing and dancing and sloshing their drinks on each other. When I stepped outside, I heard the terrible music coming from the place, not Blue Sunshine at all, some opening act doing 70s covers old people like them went crazy for. I watched Monica, she shook her head from side to side. I watched Monica raise her arms over her shoulders, close her eyes and make fish lips as she shook her head from side to side. I watched her undo his shirt buttons and paw his chest hair. His belly stuck over his belt and hung there like a tumor. They bumped hips. He held her chin in his hand and brought her face in for one of those show-off kisses. It broke my heart, her happiness. He didn't deserve it. What he deserved was to get his lights punched out in front of her in Blue Sunshine. I was ready to do it, to fuck everything up. It's what I came there to do, the only thing I was ever going to do. We were already over anyway, from the day she told me the whole story. I had too much pride. She was right about that. My feet were coming back to life, tingling the way they did on the diving board just before I jumped. People on the sidewalk were watching me watch the window. "You okay, kid?" one of them said. They had no goodness in them. Did I? I never knew for sure. I needed a cigarette, but nobody was smoking. I walked to Washington Street and found a frat guy sparking up under an overhang and stood there with him, shivering, trying to get my head right. When I walked off, I said, "Fuck." And he said, "No worries, bro." Garbage was everywhere, coffee cups and poop bags spilling out of the trash cans on the corners, dirty black mud and the numbing slush. "I'm not trying to fuck this up," I said to myself. I'd miss her too much. I missed her already. My neck hurt. One day she'd love me for real, or pretend better. I was not the cuck. Arthur was the cuck. In 10 years, he'd be 76 and dead, and Right as Rain would be Monica's and my wedding song. I kept walking. The goal was now to put steps between me and them, to get as far away as possible. I crossed a busy street and ended up in a park with a baseball field all lit up, the bases little frozen ponds. I bummed another cigarette from a guy walking his dog. Now I needed to piss too. I wanted her to watch me. It drove us wild, exposing ourselves. In real life, I'm a shy person and ashamed all the time, no matter how I come off. At the door, I cover myself with two cupped hands. This park had no good place to hide. The jungle gym, the public pool, the bocce courts were all flooded with light, the bathrooms locked, people all around on their way somewhere else. So I walked to the water and jumped the fence and climbed down. There was a whole world under there, like a cave, a place you could do anything you wanted and not be seen. I expected to find junkies or homeless guys or hookers giving blowjobs or whatever, but my eyes adjusted and I saw I was alone. I pissed for like an hour, staring at the tall ships docked across the river, wondering what voyages they'd been on before they got turned into floating museums. I should have gone back up right away, but it was warmer down there, protected from the wind and the sleet, lit by the lights on the ships. Above me was the sidewalk I'd just been walking on. Around me was the sound of water sloshing on the rocks and the roar of cars crossing the bridge. My own little kingdom. I didn't do anything too stupid at the Green Dragon, I thought. I didn't fuck it up. On Monday, I'll go back to work, and she'll be none the wiser. I took another drag of my cigarette. Somehow I still had half of it left. I jumped from rock to rock in the general direction of home.
Okay, so last question, and then we'll go to you guys. There's a line in the novel that so haunts me, that comes very early on. A boy like him goes missing every day, which really breaks my heart. And this is Stephen's last night alive, and he's feeling invisible, right? So Monica. But I think of that line both literally and figuratively, right? That, you know, the book is such an elegy to the ways that men disappear. Particularly men on the cusp of full adulthood, as these characters are. And sometimes they, you know, men at that point, they might actually disappear like soldiers who die in battle. But they also they kind of go underground in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about, there really is a lot of grief about men's disappearance in all ways that suffuses the book. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about
Yeah, and I mean, I think it gets back to what we were saying earlier a little bit about just like what, you know, again, what the culture does to men and beats out so much of the messiness and the quote unquote weakness that men have and force us to replace it with something like bravado or something like you know, to puff ourselves up again in that kind of like artificial way so that we can save face with each other, which again, like even with that he's already, again, he has to make her husband into some lesser man so that he can feel superior to him or whatever it is. And yeah, and I feel like I mean, we watch people, like, I mean, obviously not just men, but we watch people disappear before our eyes, you know, every day, and for for various reasons, kind of emotional reasons, and there is something obviously very sad about that, but it's made more, you know, it's literalized when they literally disappear physically, right? And then you don't have that chance to kind of, you think the whole time, I mean, like, you're going to figure out this guy, right? You think the whole time that you're going to figure out whoever it is in your life who is it was essentially a mystery to you. But then you no longer, so after a certain point, you no longer have that chance because either they're gone from life or they've closed down so much, that they won't let anybody else in. And again, our culture rewards that. Our culture rewards a kind of like closing off, and of for men in particular, and signs of, like the ability to communicate in a kind of authentic, like empathetic way is, of course, again, especially these days, like seen as a sign of, of weakness or less than. I mean, this is a very kind of reductive way of talking about it, but it was definitely on my mind as I was trying to figure out what these guys were like. So,
Yeah. I have so many thoughts, but let's see what questions you guys might have. I know it's kind of shy making you.
Thank you, Wesley.
I really enjoyed what you read. Thank you for doing such an excellent job of pulling out bits of your favorite. I'm just thinking about sort of how you created the world's post-living of these men. I'm thinking of Lincoln at the Bardo. Like, what kind of rules did you create for yourself in the afterlife?
Yeah.
I have to repeat the
Please,
question
yes.
Instagram.
Yes.
So the question is about because so much of the book takes place in the so much of the book takes place in the afterlife. How did you like figure out how to kind of build that world essentially? Right?
One thing that might be interesting for the writers in the room is that I had a lot more of that quote unquote world building stuff in there. It's like pre the draft that you read, I think. Because I was really like trying to map out the terms. Okay, what can they do? What can they think? How can they think? What do they know? All that sort of, all the questions you're supposed to ask, right, about the world. And I put it all in there, and early readers were like, we don't know. Like, we don't want to know too much, because the more you introduce, the more questions it opens up, and then you're distracted into thinking too much about, well, wait, if they can do this, why can't they do that? And then you're taken out of their hearts and minds, which is where I wanted people to be. So I guess the answer is I like built it all out, and then I pared it down, right? And along the way, I mean, in building all of that up, I had to make all those decisions of what they could and couldn't do. And then one kind of way that it's a tried and true way in a book or a story for us fiction writers out there is like, I had Matthew be the new guy in town, right? And town being this afterlife, right? And so he's there, because he's new, he has to learn about how this world works and what he can and can't do and can and can't know. And so the other characters are kind of teaching him in a way, or he's figuring it out along, and then of course we're figuring it out with him, right? So that's kind of how I made it happen.
Yeah, in the back.
I'm so excited to read this book, and I'm hoping you can write an author's note to my colleagues about why I'm not going to be at work for the rest of the week. But I'm really curious about your emotional landscape in inhabiting the lives and the afterlives of these characters, because I feel very emotional just hearing about them and the bits and pieces tonight. And also just the navigating of this like tender membrane between life and death. So what your emotional journey has been.
Yeah, so the question is about what Chris's emotional journey has been, because it's such an emotional book. It is a really emotional book, and how that has, right?
Yeah, I think I'm very aware that like today is actually the 7th anniversary of my father's death. The last time I was at Books Are Magic was when I was reading from Leading Men, which was 7 years ago this week. And I remember Emma Straub, who was in conversation with me, was like basically holding me together the whole time. Many of you were here, and that was so wonderful of her and of you for being here. And that like in between. So that was my last book. This is this book in between. Lost him and many other losses, in my life in various ways. And I think that really changed my relationship to writing and to the characters and to death and to why we're here, all the questions. So I think a lot of that, I was working through a lot of that in this book, even though, and this is the magic of fiction, right? Even though I had nowhere near my experience is nothing like anybody in this book. but I also feel like I now understand my own experience through these experiences, right? And so yeah, I hope I was able to tap into some of that. I also worked through in the character of Leo. I had like been very open about the fact that like probably it's impossible not to know that I am a very anxious person, and those of you who know me, and like I really struggled most of my life with panic attacks and panic disorder, all of that, and I'd never written about it, and I wrote that into the character of Leo, and working through that, it wasn't. I don't want to use the word cathartic, but I do feel like it did help me give me that perspective on my own experience. That was a very direct, like, I almost never do this, but it was a very direct, exactly how it was for me up to a point. And that I think allowed me to tap into that character in a way that I hadn't with any other character. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The passages were beautiful, and I like to read it. It's really beautiful. I'm going to ask a probably unfair question, but did you have a favorite character by the end of it, or did that kind of shift as you were writing it?
So the question is, did Chris have a favorite character? And is the question unfair? And did that maybe shift over the course of the book?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a bad answer, but I really did love them all equally. Like, I really did. I really did. I mean, I gave Caleb my birthday, so maybe that means he's my favorite. But he's also the only gay one. So I give. So, but yeah. I mean, again, another cliche. I really believe, like what you said, you really do have to love your characters so much, and I was utterly infatuated with each of these guys, and also it's narrated. The other half of the book is narrated in pieces by James and Monica and Matt's mother and Leo's sister, and there are also text message exchanges in between Matthew's girlfriend and her friends. And but all of these characters, every time when I was writing each section, I was having a blast, and I really was not. I mean, when I wasn't, freaking out and hating myself and doing all that stuff, but then saying this is never going to work. When I wasn't doing that, I was having a blast, and yeah. I mean, I think it. I mean, yeah. I mean, I just really, I really connected with these characters, and I really was just. I just really wanted. It was really a journey of like just desperately wanting to figure them out, and I don't outline. I don't I actively try not to think hard about the characters before they're on the page with me. So it really was a process of discovery every time. And I did feel like I was walking into I have some college friends here, like the Willits Lounge or something, and like there were my friends hanging out, and I wanted to find out what was on their mind today. It really did feel like a little bit of a college party, So a very, a bit of a bummer one.
So one of the boys was walking, and you gave references to Boston,
yes.
like wharfs and subway stops and stuff. I'm wondering how other locations in your life have shown up in the book.
Oh, yeah.
Characters.
Yeah.
So the question is, how have other locations in your life shown up in the book?
Yeah.
The characters.
Yeah, good question. So there is a Boston guy, Steve. That both is because I live in Boston and because that was where the first case I mentioned that I heard of. It's not. Oh, by the way, none of these are based in any real way on any of the real victims. Like there are these kinds of similarities among some of the stories, but in no way was I trying to tell any of their actual stories. I would never even think about violating that kind of thing. So yeah, there was Boston. Another one takes place in Vermont. Caleb's in Vermont, in Middlebury College, where Stacy and I have spent a few hours together at a conference, and so I knew that terrain pretty well. And again, I needed New England and Midwestern, locations. And then another one was Ann Arbor, which was a place that I had only been a couple times, but it is a college town, and it's sort of famously college town. I thought that would be a great setup. and the other was Minneapolis, where I had been a few times and where I have friends. And so it was really just like picking places where that worked with the story and where and where I had some kind of connection in the past, but some stronger than others. And then in terms of the other characters, like there's this Italian woman, Monica, and like everyone's like, oh, like a new Castellani book, like it's gonna be, we're gonna go to Italy, and it's like we're gonna have an Aperol spritz. It's like, no, you're gonna have like stale beer, and that's kind of what is, we're serving at my book parties, for this book. But there is this Italian woman, and who is Stephen's lover, and I kind of used my Italian stuff, and at some point in the book, she does go to Italy for a key scene or whatever. So I had to get Italy in there somewhere.
Considering that the book is right near a body of water, one of the things, at least from what you read, I found particularly interesting is the way that you're circling ideas, whether it be a narrative structure, whether it's names. We saw phrases come back in just could you just talk a little bit about that, about why that would be a strategy, how other ways that you employed it?
So it's a question about narrative structure and sort of circling, right?
I think the bigger question is like circling. That's
Circling,
a narrative structure,
kind of
just
like
one
continuing
aspect
to
of
sort
it.
of come back to, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think partly that's because I wanted to create a kind of commonality among them. I wanted the guys to be very distinct, but I also wanted them to blur in a way, because they are like the smiley face people are these, like they do like the profile of them is that they actually all kind of look alike. And it is I will say, I went down the rabbit hole, as I said, it is creepy as fuck, right? that there are so many of these guys, and they all do kind of look alike and have a similar demographic. And so I wanted them to kind of blur again, but be distinct. And also just readability wise, like I wanted there to be these recurring, like Emma, I think it was you, Emma, who's like, why is there so much pineapple cake in this book? Why does everyone only eat pineapple cake? And I was like, I don't know, but I wanted there to be these weird things that repeat, and that connect them. And because it is a kind of, because also they're circling the truth, and they're, I don't want to do the circling the drain thing, but in a way they kind of are. And I definitely did not want to spell anything out. Like I wanted it always to be kind of hovering around the truth, getting up close to it and then retreating from it. And so all these little clues kind of lying around and swirling around is kind of the vibe I was going for. So does that sort of answer it?
No,
okay.
What's that about?
Excellent, thank you.
I think we have time for just one more short question.
Good luck.
I was kind of curious. So you mentioned the art of perspective. I don't know if this is like a high pressure question, but I'm wondering, did you ever read The Art of Intimacy?
Oh yeah.
And if so, like, what did you draw from it, or did you apply any of it to this book?
I don't think.
Liminal spaces.
Liminal spaces, right?
Yes.
Meeting in a liminal space.
Meeting in a liminal space,
Yeah.
right?
Chris and I have known each other for a long time. So I probably made him read The Art of Intimacy like a couple times.
Yes. Yes.
So there's a lot of.
And The
there's a
Long
lot-
Run, which
there's
everyone
a
in
lot
this
of
room should buy tonight. Anyone, especially if you're an artist, Stacey's latest book, The Long Run, about basically how do we keep making art into our 60s, 70s, 80s, no matter what kind of art you're doing, and no matter what age you are. And it's kind of a part of a memoir as well, and it's incredible. So yes.
I mean, I think there's a lot of influence that goes back and forth.
for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
All right. I think that's it. I think we have a great time.
I'm Alexa with the bookstore. We're so happy to have you here tonight. If you're with us in the YouTube live stream, you can explore the link in the description box and buy Chris's book, Last Scene. If you're with us here tonight, you did your job. We're sold out. But we do have copies of Leading Men and The Long Run, which you just heard the perfect pitch for. So you can go and we can sell out of those. In just a second, Chris will be signing books. If you turn and look at where my amazing coworker Ben is pointing, that is where Chris will be. If you can save your hugs for the signing line, that would be great. I'm going to get him back there so we can get our book signed. And then just be mindful you grab all your things when you stand up because we got to turn this place back into a bookstore. Thank you guys so much and have a wonderful night.